Blake a third time.
That is Kevin Cash on his decision last night to pull Blake Snell in the middle of the sixth inning following just the second hit given up by Snell in the ball game. This is Sports Map All Night. I'm Bill Schmidt. Andrew Carlson in here as well. You can join us 1-800-224-2004. Andrew, you and I talked about this at length last night, and I tried to take a day of recovery, sit back, read and take in all the information, read a lot of information from different baseball guys that have seen a lot more ball than I have. You know, I didn't want to just be super reactionary as I felt like I was a little bit last night. Maybe I didn't account for everything, right? And when I slept on the Kevin Cash decision, woke up today, did a little slight exercise, nothing like my guy Andrew Carlson does. He's just an absolute beast in the gym. It was more just one of those where I kind of sat back and I just wanted to digest it. I want to look at it from an open standpoint, with an open view, with an open lens, right? And I want to understand where Kevin Cash was coming from last night. And Andrew, listening to it again, I've heard that soundbite probably about 15 times already now. Listened to everything he said last night. Watched Verducci and Rosenthal on the post game as well. And Tim Kurkjian had a great comment last night on Baseball Tonight after we got off the air. And I still can't understand the decision by Kevin Cash. Oh, actually, I have to rephrase that. I completely understand why he made the decision. I just cannot agree with it. I cannot agree with pulling your best player at that position who was available to you that night, right? Because you can say Charlie Morton's a better starter. You could possibly make the argument that Tyler Glasnow was better. I see Cy Young next to Blake Snell's name and on his Baseball Reference webpage. I've seen this guy dominate big-time hitters in the American League for the better part of the last 4 or 5 years. And I cannot come to the decision. I cannot agree with the decision to pull him at that point in the game. I understand that Mookie Betts at some point was going to bounce back against left-handed pitching, right? I read and dove into all the numbers that Blake Snell has not pitched through the sixth inning in any of his starts here in 2020. I try to take all that into account. But Andrew, as I sit here again tonight, about 22 hours removed from when Kevin Cash went and pulled Blake Snell before he faced Mookie Betts in the top of the Dodger order in the middle of the sixth inning last night in Game 6 of the World Series, I still can't agree with it. We're at a point in this game, this beautiful game, and Bill Plunk is going to be here in 25 minutes to discuss it. Covered the Dodgers for a long time and finally World Series champions. And take nothing away from the Dodgers, right? Because I have the luxury of doing this now with hindsight and all the results in front of us. Right, Andrew? That was why last night, and when I sat back and I thought about it this morning, had a couple cups of coffee. You know how many I suck down throughout the day. It's like 8 or 9. Probably over my third cup this morning, I was thinking, man, it's easy to be reactionary, right? It's easy to have all the answers following the outcome, with the outcome in hand, and all the stats in front of you. But when push comes to shove, and when you're analyzing Game 6 of the World Series from last night, what Tim Kurkjian and what I heard him say last night just continued to ring through my mind. We're no longer managing a game. It's simply just analyzing a situation. We've taken the human aspect out of the manager position by replacing it with somewhat of a binder. And if you're going to judge every single moment in a baseball season and in a postseason the same way, you're a better businessman maybe than I am, right? Because I will admit, I'm very reactionary. Andrew can attest to it after after a segment, Andrew, how reactionary am I, good or bad, to what just happened?
You're reactionary in a segment, Bill. What do you mean?
I'm not. I am a very a fiery individual when it comes to a yes, that was good, or no, that sucked. And usually there's no in between here. I'm at least seeing the in between. I get why they made the decision. They stuck to their plan. They stuck to their model. But Kevin Cash been around this game for a long time. Seen people that have been around this game for so long. Mark Teixeira played 15, 20 years, right? He couldn't agree with it. I was watching MLB Network and no one could agree with it. And even last night, Kevin Kiermaier, who I think is respected out of anybody in that Tampa Rays clubhouse, probably more than most. Even Kevin Kiermaier last night couldn't agree with it. And we're going to hear him in just a second. But 0 for 6 that night with 6 strikeouts against the top of the order. Those are the only numbers that I can look at and say the guy deserved the opportunity to at least go and get bets. One more guy gets on and I'm totally down with it. And hindsight being 2020, when I go back and look at a lot of these decisions, Matt Harvey being kept in by Terry Collins in the 2015 World Series, that was right against the Royals, backfires. Right, Grady Little leaving Pedro Martinez in the 8th inning, backfires. But when it's the game on the line across sports, people always rip officials for putting their nose in and dictating the outcome of a game. It's different when it's a coach. It's different when it's a manager. But when the manager is using some kind of rule book, a set of guidelines that you must follow, despite whatever the feel is, despite however the game has been played, and you have to stick to that plan, well, then I feel like you're doing the same thing. You're putting yourself, inserting that into the outcome of the game. This was Blake Snell last night after the game with every opportunity to throw his manager under the bus. I think Blake Snell deserves a lot of credit because I don't know that I would have been able to be this calm with my answer.
Cash is a hell of a manager. We can't take that away from him. I mean, if Nick gets out of the jam like he usually does and our bullpen holds it down like they usually do, no one's talking about it. So at the end of the day, I see both sides. But, I mean, just me and the way that, I felt that game and what he was able to see during that game, I don't want to be taken out of that game. I mean, I don't like being taken out of any game, honestly. And for the most part, me and Cash, I'm gonna side with him because I know how good of a manager he is. And, it's just tough. It's tough because, I felt so good. I felt like I did everything I could possibly do to succeed against that Dodger lineup, which is really hard to do because of how talented they are.
He really did. And especially against the top of the order. I said 0 for 6 with 6 strikeouts. They were 0 for 8 if you include Muncy, the 4-hole hitter. You had 2 out in the inning already. Soft contact that allows it. That's the part of the decision where at some point you got to allow your players and your best players to be superstars, to be stars. Whether or not it's the way that got you there, at some point I'm going to ride my best horse into the ground. I'm going to ride or die with my best guy. Not ride or die with my plan, but with my best player. And that's how it feels like Kevin Kiermaier felt after the game, starting center fielder for the Tampa Bay Rays, when asked his belief and his reaction to Kevin Cash yanking Blake Snell in the middle of that 6th inning up 1-0.
I'm not the manager. I don't make decisions. Asking for my opinion though, I think it was Blake's game. He was dominating. I don't really care what the numbers say. 3rd time through the order or whatever. There wasn't many guys making contact in general and no hard contact whatsoever. And I think we all wanted to see him go in there, but or stay in there. But it's Cash and everyone they've been great this whole year with making decisions, and it didn't work out for us right there. But with Blake's pitch count and how dominant he was, I think all of us. Well, no, I can't even say that. I wanted to see him stay in because he's had the early hook last couple of times out there, and I was hoping they'd give him that final nod.
And that's a player to a player saying, I wish they would have given you a chance. And I was asked earlier today this question, and I wanted to pose it throughout the show. And you're always welcome, 1-800-224-2004. That with the hindsight being 2020, and we are a reactionary business. That is why sports talk radio is a thing. That's why we have shows like this. And people can watch us on the live streams on Twitter at Bill Schmidt Radio. Bill Schmidt on YouTube is where all the shows get posted to, and streamsportsmap.com, the SportsMap radio app, is with everything taken into account. Is baseball going away from what made it great? We've all seen Moneyball, where the old-time scout walks into Brad Pitt's office and says, you're just going to throw away 80 years of scouting experience in there? Right? All these guys have been watching baseball for 30 years, and you're going to go with some book? And when you're building a team, that's probably the right way to go. But when it comes to managing a game, coordinating an offense, coordinating a defense in football, deciding what substitutions and what patterns of rotations to run in basketball. And we're going to talk some NBA here tonight as Andrew's Houston Rockets made an interesting day. At some point, the human element has to be a factor. Are we taking the human element out of the manager position? Does that still even exist anymore? Because I think Kevin Cash showed you last night the way the game is trending. Dodgers are much more old school than you would think. And even they focus on analytics. Every team has an analytics department. Are we taking the human element too much out of managing in a baseball game? 1-800-224-2004. And take no credit away from the Dodgers. They went out and won it last night, so we will celebrate them with Bill Plunkett coming up in 15 minutes and he's been a Dodger beat writer for a long time for the Orange County Register and the Southern California News Group. But also we'll hear from the world champions next. We're off and running. Andrew Carlson and Bill Schmidt. It's Sports Map all night. fact this. Oh, quickly, let's pay the bills, and then I'll ask you. Guys, we're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios. Don't let a bad battery leave you stranded. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery free of charge if it needs to be replaced. O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact right battery for your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. Keep your car on the road by getting your battery tested for free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better parts, better prices every single day. So let's this is fun. Where do Warrior fans fall in there for Andrew Carlson, the lifetime Houston Rockets fan?
They are very low. They are right above the Jazz. And, the list only goes up from there, from those two.
The Jazz are involved in that, did you just say?
Oh, man. So this is going back longer term for the Rockets.
Okay.
The Stockton Malone era was a
Mhm.
little bit before my time, which sort of just set the scene, so to speak, for the animosity. It set the bed. And I was sort of raised to hate the Jazz growing up just based on that rivalry back in the late 90s.
Sure.
And then in the mid-early 2000s, we had the T-Mac Yao-led Rockets that were really good teams, but just couldn't quite get over the hump that was the Utah Jazz because that matchup just didn't work out for them because the Jazz had one of the first iterations of a stretch five, which is something that Yao couldn't really handle super well in Mehmet Okur. So that's
a great name.
Combine the fact that the Rockets had trouble with them with the fact that their fan base was just completely disgusting in the way they treated the Rockets every time up in Utah. It made for a very easy enemy, so to speak, when I was growing up.
Oh man. See, now these are the parts of the regional territories that I just don't know about. So like here in Milwaukee, where I broadcast from inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios, that's very much anything to do with Chicago, right? People despise the city of Chicago here in Milwaukee because there's a little bit of we're probably the Utah, if I can be honest with you in that sense, right? We're more of the small market that, we're going to stick it to those guys in the big city, right? And we're going to show them what we can do. And we're very much not nice when Chicago teams come up here and then people blame Chicago people for it. It's very funny. I enjoy it a lot. But like when the Cubs won the World Series in 2016, I did not like anybody that was on that team, even including Anthony Rizzo, who might be one of the most likable human beings on the face of the planet. I could not be happy for any of them, but I was happy for all my friends and their dads who had loved baseball since they were, 3 years old and had never seen the team actually win. Like that was the part of it that I was happy for. This one, however, I don't know that I can totally feel bad for any Dodger fans because, we're acting like 32 years without a championship was absolute blasphemy. The Red Sox went like 88 years without one. Cubs went over 100 without one. Like it's not that long, folks. However, you can be happy for certain individuals. Like I'm happy for Clayton Kershaw. I don't know about you. I'm very happy that Clayton at least gets a ring. Now, for you, there's some true disdain for the LA Dodgers. How have you handled this, Andrew Carlson, as we're now about 24 hours fully removed from the Dodgers hoisting that piece of metal called the Commissioner's Trophy?
I'm just happy for certain people in the organization, certain players, and that's it. The fan base, the way that they've gone about trashing Astros fans and some of the players on the team, the way they've gone about that. And look, I understand where some of that animosity comes from.
For sure.
I mean, I like it or I'm going to agree with it. But Dave Roberts and Clayton Kershaw, specifically to name two guys, I'm happy for. But other than that, there's not another name that springs to mind where I'm instantly like, you know what? I'm really happy for that guy. I'm happy that they got their ring and got their piece of metal, as Rob Manfred calls it.
So you're not very happy for one Cody Bellinger, I can assume?
No.
No, I totally agree. No, and the same deal. There's moments in time where you can be very happy for certain individuals and just still hate the outcome. When they ended up getting that last out and Julio Urias Cade Willy Adames looking last night and really what was a futile at bat to finish the game. I was like, man, I'm kind of happy for that kid. He's gone through two devastating injuries and he played such a major role in winning the title. Like those are the stories that I enjoy. But then the aforementioned Cody Bellinger comes to mind. And I felt like I wanted to be like Carlos Correa and say, Cody, you need to shut up. You need to shut up. But like Corey Seager, then again, a couple of years ago in 2018, when the Dodgers eliminate my Brewers in Game 7 of the NLCS, which I still haven't quite gotten over, we were witnessing guys like Manny Machado be on that team because Corey Seager was hurt. He wasn't a part of it and seems to be almost like a forgotten member of that big three, so to speak. I want to get Bill Plunkett's thoughts on Corey Seager, now the World Series MVP, because he wins that award last night, and I was like, man, pretty happy for Seager. He's a good ball player.
20.
It's happy for Clayton Kershaw. Good ball player. You mentioned Dave Roberts, second longest tenured manager in the National League. Got to be happy for him. Doesn't mean that we got to love the result. But I love talking to Bill Plunkett. He joins us next, talks Dodgers, and memorializes the world champions next on Sports Map All Night.
Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Bill Schmidt.
This hour of Sports Map Radio has been brought to you by Rocket Mortgage. Want to see your loan options, adjust payments, and closing costs online in real time? Rocket can. 1-800-224-2004 inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. It is Sports Map all night. My guy Andrew Carlson in here with me. I'm Bill Schmidt. Thanks for hanging out with us. We have one coming through on the live stream. You can always comment on the live streams at YouTube. On YouTube, you find us at Bill Schmidt Radio. Also on Twitter at Bill Schmidt Radio. You can watch the live stream all night. Stay Thirsty says, Bill, was Rob Manfred loaded during the trophy presentation last night? Andrew, I don't know where you fall in on this. I'm going to give Rob the benefit of the doubt, which I have not done most times. I think he may have had one of those earpieces in and he was hearing himself talk. That's why he was stumbling.
I mean, he's bad at everything else he does. Why wouldn't he be a bad public speaker too?
Amen. I mean, like, there's not much that Rob Manfred has knocked out of the park as the commissioner of baseball. It would be much better of a story if he was loaded, though. And I'd probably have a lot more respect for him. Come on back. 2 more hours to go. It's Sports Map all night. live. Thanks for hanging out with us on a hump day. First day that we have not had live sports since July 22nd. But Andrew, as the Twitter police wanted to draw to my attention, I apparently lied about that because there was NASCAR today. Your boy Kyle Busch won the rained out NASCAR race earlier on today. That was rained out 3 different times. So I lied. There was racing today, but I was saying there was no NBA, MLB, NHL, or NFL today. First day since July 22nd. However, there are sports on because have no fear, the MLS is here. You're in the midst of seeing your Houston Dynamo. Sounds like put up an absolute clunker. Could be worse, though. Your Arsenal folks are about to get a win tomorrow. I can tell you that much right now, Andrew. I already hammered him on the money line.
They better. They're playing some team from Ireland. They better win.
Talking English Premier League with Andrew is one of my favorite things to do. As frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I need to get educated. And it's been Andrew Carlson, Jose Pardita, also Sports Map Radio Network family, has helped me out tremendously in learning and evolving as a soccer fan. I believe that it's something that we all need to get behind. It was like that. Soccer and the fight game were the only things that we really had going for us during the shutdown. And now it was like sports overload for the last 3.5 months. And now we're going to walk into a very dark period. The NBA earlier today had a meeting with their board of governors, and a large push, it sounds like, coming from the NBPA to start the NBA season in January. It doesn't appear that December 22nd is going to happen, which was the original plan for a 72-game NBA season. Could be all the way until January 18th. Start up on Martin Luther King Day. Another good headline for it. Trade deadline in the NFL is a week away. What do your teams need? Sports Map all night. from such an important day to this show, to Sports Map Radio. We are inside a week away from the NFL trade deadline coming up on November 3rd. And teams across the National Football League are going to have some decisions to make. And your team might be one of those. I know mine is. I know the Green Bay Packers have some kind of decisions to make. Earlier today being linked to possibly Will Fuller the fifth. Different wide receivers in Houston could be moved. We saw a couple of trades go down earlier on today. Des Bryant is back in the NFL. They go out and get a wide receiver there in Baltimore to their practice squad. I don't know exactly what he does. I don't know exactly how much he factors in, if at all, to the big club's plans. However, you start to look at what can your team really get accomplished in at the trade deadline in the National Football League, right? The football is such a different game in comparison to Major League Baseball, where you see a lot of trades at the deadline. The NBA is the same way, where individual attributes and individual play, it's not all that different across the league, right? Offensive sets in Houston may be very different from Utah, but when you're talking about going and playing basketball, it's 5 guys on the floor going and playing basketball against another 5 guys. And you can cover up warts and include players quicker than you do necessarily in sports like the NFL. For the NFL, if you're going to grab somebody and you know that they're going to play a prominent role for you, there's going to be some true give and take. And there has to be a fit kind of in mold position where they can take over. And draft picks are very valuable in the NFL. The salary cap is structured so that you need to have first, second, third year players playing for you in the National Football League, unlike in other sports where, you can buy different guys that are going to be players for you at some point in their career. So we're within a week away from the trade deadline. We've already seen now earlier today, Carlos Dunlap goes to the Seattle Seahawks. Pass rusher, formerly of the Cincinnati Bengals, been there for almost 10 plus years, if not more. And he was traded for an offensive lineman and a 7th-round pick in 2021. Those types of packages, I think you're going to see more of in this year's deadline than in years past. But this year's deadline is a lot more tricky, a lot trickier than it has been in years past in the NFL. And what I mean by that is you need to have this deal somewhat worked out most likely by tomorrow. The way the COVID protocols go, if somebody's going to actually play for you week 9, there's a 7-day period in which you quarantine, then you go through a couple rounds of testing, you get cleared to then join the team about 7 days after. So if a deal is going to be made, I think you're going to hear about it within the next day or so in comparison to just at the November 3rd deadline. So what teams have the biggest need as we stand 1 week away from the trade deadline? The Seattle Seahawks started working at filling some of the holes that they have. We've talked about it a lot on this show, Andrew. Their pass rush is absolutely anemic. Like, there was no pressure on the quarterback whatsoever. They go and grab Carlos Dunlap today. Good player. He's gonna fill a hole. He's gonna definitely get a bunch of reps there in Seattle. He's gonna play it. He's gonna be a factor there. But 1 sack on the year, 31-year-old. I mean, he's in his career, he's got almost 90 sacks. So there's kind of a ceiling, I think, there. And I thought they would have been more tied into the Everson Griffin sweepstakes as well. He signs with Detroit earlier today. Dontari Poe is also cut by the Dallas Cowboys today. That's a possibility. We already know, and we're going to hear more about the Antonio Brown acquisition by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the next segment of the program. But teams across the league are making moves to further their opportunity to win a Super Bowl. And when you're one of those 8 teams right now that I think that realistically could win the Super Bowl, what are the biggest needs right there? 1-800-224-2004. Seattle's defense is the biggest need of all. And while they go and get Jamal Adams in the offseason, He's still going to be out of practice again today, out of practice again yesterday. And the possibility that he's back onto the field this week for Seattle is slim to none when they host San Francisco. We already know that Tampa Bay is filling any possible hole that they find. But look around the league. Look at teams that do have needs. Like the Green Bay Packers. Thoroughly need help at the wide receiver position. Looks like Allen Lazard, their number 2, is set to come back within the next week and a half or so. We return to practice today. But if you're counting on Devontae Adams and friends to be able to catch passes and touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers once the season gets later on into January, you're going to need a little bit more help there. They can improve the tight end spot. I think wide receiver is the easiest one to fill in a trade market that, while the NFL trade deadline is usually not a very robust season, we're seeing that moves are being made this year different from years past. I put the Dallas Cowboys in the list of teams that have huge needs at the deadline and that can supplement those needs. Not necessarily because I think Dallas can win the Super Bowl. I did earlier in the year when I picked them to win the NFC when we did our preseason predictions. But they can definitely still win the NFC East. They're only a half game out. If Ryan Fitzpatrick is no longer going to be the starting quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, seems like a no-brainer that he should be the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Gotta be better than Cooper Rush that was just brought in earlier today. Andy Dalton, you don't know if he's going to be able to go. It doesn't look like it. If you don't believe that that's a possibility or a legitimate opportunity for Dallas to go and make that move, I don't know what to tell you. Should absolutely look at a 5th or a 6th round pick in that deal. What about the Pittsburgh Steelers? Finally had them in my top 5. Probably was a little bit too late to the party. But I think they also could be in the quarterback market. And stay with me on this for a second. Ben Roethlisberger has only finished 16 games 4 times in his Hall of Fame career. All the years that Big Ben has been to Super Bowls, been to the playoffs, running the AFC North, handling teams in the playoffs, leading one of the most prestigious organizations in the NFL to multiple appearances in the conference title game. He's only played a full season 4 times since 2004. So when you have a team that's good enough to go to the Super Bowl, and that defense definitely looks like they are good enough. Their stable of wide receivers look like they are good enough to maximize. Why wouldn't you bring in the real insurance policy in the back end? We already know what happened last year. We all got to see that movie play out in front of us and what that team in Pittsburgh looked like once Big Ben wasn't the quarterback. We know what Mason Rudolph is. I think if you're Pittsburgh, I think you owe it to the team and the rest of that group to add to that room and bring in a legitimate insurance policy over Mason Rudolph. Do I think they do? Probably not. But I think that's a legit need if you're Pittsburgh. What about Arizona? I think they're a playoff team, and I thought they were a playoff team from the beginning of the year. They lose one of the premier pass rushers that this league has had for the last decade in Chandler Jones. An all-decade performer is out for the year. If Kyler Murray is going to be able to go win a playoff game in just his second year, they were aggressive enough to go and make the move for DeAndre Hopkins. Why not be interested in seeing what a move for a pass rusher would do for you in Arizona? I think that's a clear need. They made good enough plays against Seattle. They made just enough plays against Seattle. But as the season goes on, You're going to play teams with better offensive lines than the Seahawks. And you're going to face teams that have, well, legitimate pass rushers as well. Kyler's going to face a lot of heat. Got to get him some help. Philadelphia, the 2-4-1 record. I know the jokes are going to come about the NFC East. Do I think the Eagles can necessarily win the Super Bowl? No. I think they can win playoff games, though. And despite how horrible the record is, how bad Carson Wentz has looked at times, I think they're legit enough that they deserve to add, and Carson Wentz deserves a little bit more help on the outside. They're going to get Alshon Jeffrey back. Hopefully Deshaun Jackson can play at some point for an extended period of time this year, get a little bit of run going. But maybe Seattle didn't just need a personnel move. They needed just a bye week, more importantly. They got that. Or they're going to get that. But for your team across the NFL, what's the biggest need going into the trade deadline just a couple of weeks away? Buffalo's also going to be in this camp. What can the Buffalo Bills do? They were in the camp and they were in the conversations for Le'Veon Bell. Is there a running back that's on the market that they should be looking at? What about Tennessee? I think Tennessee's as good as any team around. Defensively, Jeffrey Simmons needs somebody on the defensive line to slow down some running games, get some real pressure on the quarterback. Jadeveon Clowney, Jeffrey Simmons, and insert Geno Atkins. He hasn't been at Bengals practice for the last couple of days. Looks like they're interested. 1-800-224-2004. What team has the biggest need 1 week away from the NFL trade deadline? And if it's your team, who's your target? The Packers are looking at wide receivers, apparently Will Fuller. Andrew, you and I have talked about this at length. I'm not the biggest Will Fuller fan, but frankly, if I have to watch Malik Taylor and someone called MVS one more time try to catch a deep ball from Aaron Rodgers and not stick their hands out, I'm going to get sick to my stomach. So let's get some legitimate help in here. Seattle Seahawks did that, at least started it today with Carlos Dunlap. You want to get Russell Wilson a Super Bowl and MVP? Go give him some help. They're doing the same thing in Tampa Bay. I think we can all learn from what the Buccaneers are doing. Teams in the NFL should learn from what Tampa Bay is doing. And I think we can all learn something from Tom Brady. He'll fill you in next. And we're going to talk to Josh Parcell, team that did not factor into the equation earlier in the year of having really any needs because I didn't think they would add the Carolina Panthers. Maybe they're interested. Josh Parcell talks Carolina Panther football with us in 15 minutes from WFNZ in Charlotte right here on Sports Map All Night. Don't go anywhere. Bill Schmidt, Andrew Carlson with you on Sports Map Radio. 224-2004. We're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Need replacement parts and tools for your repair, maintenance, or restoration project? O'Reilly Auto Parts has you covered. Trust the knowledgeable, friendly, professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. They know what it takes to get the job done right the first time. I stress first time, not the fifth time after your wife has already made you sleep on the couch for 2 nights. In fact, professional technicians have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for years. Stop by and talk to one of the professional parts people today at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices. Every single day, 1-800-224-2004. Inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios is Andrew Carlson and myself, Bill Schmid, talking NFL. Which team has the biggest need 1 week away from the trade deadline? Andrew Carlson, it doesn't seem like your Houston Texans will be adding anytime soon. Not because they're 1-5, but primarily because they have nobody to ship out. They have no picks to ship out for players. Is there a need that you could possibly see that the Texans could fit outside of?
1-6, Bill. Thank you. Okay, I appreciate you giving them credit. 1-5, but
I was just trying to help. I didn't want to count this weekend, but you know.
And look, the only need they have is the need to ship out players. They need to ship out J.J. Watt. I would be less quick to ship out Will Fuller. I could be convinced into having him stay and be part of the rebuild. But the reality is the only people that need to stay are Deshaun Watson, Titus Howard on the offensive line, and Laramie Tunsil on the offensive line. Everybody else theoretically should be for sale.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, you look at the rest of that lineup, and you can see a lot of opportunities to be dealt. And the J.J. Watt one is puzzling to me. Not in the fact of, like, do you trade the 31-year-old future Hall of Famer, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year? But it's a different situation than any other 1-6 team, I think, that could be moved, or that could be looking to move pieces, looking to move players. Because J.J. Watt not only is HOF, right? He's already got a gold jacket made for him, set to a whatever 54 long that he is. But J.J. Watt's also got a statue in the making outside of NRG Stadium. So if Cal McNair and the McNair family believes that they can allow an interim general manager to make that kind of move, then more power to them. Do they ship out a Randall Cobb and a Brandon Cooks, who's already gotten traded how many different times in his career? Like, there are places and people that definitely could get moved, probably should be moved. And throughout the NFL, there are clearly teams that should be making moves, that should be finding draft capital for players that they have on the roster right now. 1-800-224-2004. If I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, it's just a difficult one for me to look at. I think you almost need to make a move to try to inspire some kind of hope back into that team. They got themselves a bye week coming up that they desperately, desperately need. And a very, very winnable game coming up here against the Dallas Cowboys, one that they probably should win on Sunday Night Football. And we get to watch the NFC East on Sunday Night Football this week. How excited and how lucky are we? We also get to see Antonio Brown soon enough in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform. It's kind of what inspired the conversation, because the Buccaneers are adding anybody and everybody, right? Did they believe in Ronald Jones as a feature back? Nah, not necessarily. Why don't we bring in Leonard Fournette? Well, we already got Chris Godwin. Mike Evans is having a great year. Godwin's been kind of dinged up all year. You know what? Why don't we go and grab Antonio Brown? Right? Cameron Brate, OJ Howard, good tight ends. They're going to supplement us for the whole season. They're going to be good weapons. Let's go bring in Rob Gronkowski. They're making the moves to put themselves over the top. I think there's about 6 teams in the NFL that should be making moves to go over the top. Bruce Arians earlier today said that Antonio Brown's first workout, the team was extraordinary. Said it was fantastic. And then Tom Brady was asked, should and why is he so drawn to bringing in Antonio Brown into the locker room? What makes Antonio Brown such an attractive teammate to Tom Brady? And I wanted to play this for you before Josh Parcell comes up from WFNZ
Good now.
in Carolina. This is Tom Brady earlier today.
Well, I always try to have a, bring up.
Yeah, it's about 2 minutes. Yeah, it's just. I didn't want to rush it, but I didn't want it to like be coming up on the outro bed.
You're totally fine, dude. I could not hear what you were saying. That was my bad.
Upshane's got to go now. Like we got to toss to it. Got to go.
Boom, boom.
Guinness, Teddy Bruschi, Troy Brown.
If we got to cut it early
Steve
too,
Bledsoe.
no problem.
No, it's fine, but it's fine where it is now. But it was getting close.
It was getting dicey, yeah.
Yeah.
From a younger player to an older player, you really want to see guys succeed and you want to see guys do well. And it's always about maximizing your potential. And I had a lot of people support me over the years, realizing that I was far from where I needed to be. And they would guide me to and provide me with the help that I needed as a player to reach my potential. And I think that's, how you impact people. And I think we talk about that a lot as professional athletes, how you impact people on the field is one thing, how you impact people off the field is another. So whether that's teammates that you can impact or people in the community that you can impact, I think all those things are important. And you just try your best every day, realizing that, so a lot of people weren't born with the same advantages that I've had growing up. They weren't born with the same background or support systems that I had. And I think when you recognize that and you bring that to relationships, all you can do is the best you can do. And, for me, I think that's something that I really enjoy still about playing football is that I have probably more perspective than just about every player in the league right now based on my years of experience and what I've seen. And I want to see other guys succeed. And I think a lot of joy in my experience comes from seeing other people be their best and seeing people succeed in ways that can set their family up. And I think that's a really important aspect of football for me.
That is Tom Brady discussing why he gets so much joy from hopefully seeing Antonio Brown back in the NFL. And not hopefully, he is back in the NFL. And he's back on his team. Worked out with him earlier today, his first Tampa Bay Buccaneer practice. Most likely will make his debut next week, week number 9, against New Orleans Saints. Oh, that's going to be a good one. Let's stay in the NFC South. Talk some Carolina Panthers. Team that's been as surprising to me as ever. Josh Parcell is here next on Sports Map All Night. O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Thanks for being here, watching us on the live stream at Bill Schmid Radio. Is how you follow me on Twitter at Carlson Radio. How you find my guy Andrew Carlson on social media as well. Sports Map Radio, the easiest way to find the station, guys, in the Sports Map Radio network, ever expanding across the country, coast to coast. But if you're listening to us on a local affiliate, and then you're on a long drive, maybe you're delivering for Amazon, right? And you're going off to a different county, and the reception's just not very good. The Sports Map Radio app is there for you at any point in time. Sports Map Radio app. It's free. You can find podcasts on there of all the shows we do each and every day. It's the easiest way to stay in touch with the station. It's the easiest way to call the station at 1-800-224-2004. Just go download that bad boy right now today, and you take us anytime, anywhere across the country on the Sports Map Radio Network. And then you hear Sports Map all night, and you don't miss a moment of it. This hour of the program is presented by Rocket Mortgage. When you need certainty in the home buying process with a loan that fits your life, Rocket can. 1-800-224-2004. We're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios with no live sports for the first time since July 22nd. We do have some news to discuss. And Justin Turner making the most noise today, not because he won the World Series MVP. No, he tested positive for COVID-19 yesterday and was pulled from Game 6 in the 6th inning after the league got word that his second test, his first test, which was thought to be was inconclusive earlier in the morning, thought to be inconclusive in the morning. They retested him with a point of care test. When that second test came back as a positive, they then went and pulled out Justin Turner from the game and isolated him underneath in a small room at Globe Life Field last night. After the game was over and his LA Dodgers won, the stories are coming out that the Dodgers third baseman refused instructions from security to leave the field and instead just kind of ran back out onto the field and celebrated with his teammates. Took pictures with the team. And then earlier today, MLB put out a very tough statement at Justin Turner. Not very happy with him. But also, Justin Turner's a free agent. Wonder how that impacts his free agency the rest of the year. 1 hour to go. Some free agency moves might be coming to Philadelphia. Keep it right here. Sports Map all night. All night. Thanks for being here. Hour number 3 is off and running. Bill Schmidt alongside Andrew Carlson inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Going to talk about Andrew Carlson's Houston Rockets in this third hour of the program. They make some news, as well as their former boss is on the move. Daryl Morey going to go team up reportedly with Elton Brand and Doc Rivers in Philadelphia. And is that a move that ultimately can put the 76ers on top, or at least get them near the top? A team that's got as much talent as anybody in the league. We'll get into that, as well as Trevor Lawrence made a little bit of news earlier on this week that I'm just really hoping is not true. I'm begging and pleading that it's not an accurate story and that Trevor Lawrence was just trying to play nice and be a good soldier, play along to a bit, because that would be a very, very poor decision. That comes up in about 15, 20 minutes from right now, as well as going to preview a little bit more of Thursday Night Football. We just talked to Josh Parcell of WFNZ in Charlotte about that Carolina Panthers team. They play Atlanta coming up tomorrow night. And before anybody jokes about what the Atlanta Falcons are and have been this season, that Carolina Panther team is fun to watch. They've had a lot of success for a team that really doesn't have a whole lot of talent, I think, on the roster. And as Josh and I said, thought maybe a 5-6 win team at best going into this year. They've already got 3, and their schedule opens up to a point where you could almost see the Carolina Panthers be 500. And whereas mediocrity in the NBA is the worst place you can be in sports, getting to 500 in the National Football League is a win, especially when you're a first-year head coach. You're completely retooling and reorganizing the organization. Those are things that you just can't put a price on.
20.
But Daryl Morey is going to have a price. And he is going to have to do a lot of moving and a lot of shaking, finalizing a deal to be the new boss of the Philadelphia 76ers. But is it enough? Sports Map all night. Keep it right here. and it will be back is the better way to phrase that. As negotiations were going on earlier today, conversation with the Board of Governors, whether or not and when, more importantly, we could possibly see the NBA back in action. Early indications were that the league was targeting being back on the floor coming up on December 22nd. That is looking less and less likely as we get closer to the kind of drop dead date as to when an agreement would have to be put in place. But vets are expecting to rest at least another month. And Danny Green earlier today on the Ringer said, if we start in December, I think most guys, not going to be there, had to guess that there's going to be a lot of vets on their team that are going to try to sit down. We got a lot of young guys or rookies. To have that quick of a restart, I wouldn't expect to see LeBron there. I wouldn't expect to see him probably for the first month of the season, probably working out with us, but I don't expect to see guys or that will want to be there or show up willingly if indeed players were set to be back on the floor come December 22nd. And that is the rumored start date of a 72-game regular season. On a call earlier on, though, more and more are believing that that game and that start could be pushed back all the way to like January 18th. But the league wants to get back going before, or at least quick enough, I should say, so that the league, in theory, would allow players and be able to allow players to go and play for their respective home countries in the 2021 Summer Olympic Games. So with all those moving parts to come, we still know, and the firm date that we have in front of us is November 18th will be the NBA draft. The Philadelphia 76ers have been one of the teams who, in the last few years, drafted quite well, and they've had some real luck in the NBA draft the last few years. Look at Joel Embiid as the third overall pick that they got in a draft that featured Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins as the second and first overall picks, respectively, in that draft, followed by Embiid. They get the number one overall pick. They find Ben Simmons, who is as unicorn-ish as you can find in the league. There's not many guys like him, not many guys that have ever played in the NBA that are quite like Ben Simmons. But earlier on today, news from Adrian Wojnarowski coming out saying that the Philadelphia 76ers are close to finalizing a new deal with a new president of basketball operations, and he is former Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey. Formal announcement is expected to be coming within the next week or so. Now, Elton Brand is expected to still stay as the general manager of the team. Doc Rivers, as we know within the last month, was named the Philadelphia 76ers head coach, and Elton Brand was pretty prominent in bringing in Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey have a long history together. They know each other very, very well. I look at this, and I want to get Andrew Carlson's take on it as the Rocket fan on the show. I think it's quite genius for any team that is looking at retooling their front office or wanting their front office run by somebody who takes as many risks as anybody in the NBA. Daryl Morey's your guy. I mean, I'm absolutely enamored with the job that he did there in Houston. While maybe the final outcome was not what anybody wanted it to be, you got to take swings in this business. And Daryl Morey is never afraid, Andrew, to take a big swing. They're going to need a couple of big swings to figure out what's going on in Philadelphia. I saw this move, and when I saw the report earlier on today, my initial thought was, okay, they're going to give it about 6 months, and then Daryl Morey is going to have to pick Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons.
I don't know if he's going to have to pick between the two, but he's going to have to do a lot of retooling on that roster. And there's probably no GM that I would rather retool with a very tight cap, the way the 76ers have it, than Daryl Morey. And I'm saying GM, he's going to be the president of basketball operations. I think Elton Brand's still technically going to be the GM. But Daryl Morey, you're not bringing him in unless he's calling the shots. And if he is the one calling the shots, as we expect him to be, then the 76ers have made a really good move here, because there is nobody else in the league that can maneuver when he's right up against the cap in the way that Daryl Morey can. And with those contracts that Tobias Harris has, Josh Richardson has,
Yep.
Al Horford, I mean, they are paying a lot of guys a whole bunch of money, and some of those players aren't really contributing all that much, especially when it comes playoff time. I mean, Al Horford, they're paying him upwards of $25 million a year, and he's not even starting for them on a consistent basis. And he wasn't making even 10 points a game, 5 rebounds a game during the playoffs. And this is someone that you're paying upwards of $25 million. So he's got a lot of work on his hands, but when it comes to that sort of situation, there's probably no other person you'd rather be at the head of the ship.
And that's the difficult position that he's going to get thrust into. You mentioned some of those deals. The Tobias Harris deal is huge. And is Tobias Harris a really good player in the NBA? Sure. Is he a max level player? No. And like those are the decisions, and somehow he's going to have to find teams, you would imagine, that can work in and are open to taking those kind of albatross contracts. The Al Horford one didn't make sense from the jump. And when you brought him in to then play alongside Joel Embiid, just didn't feel like it would make any sense whatsoever. You're right. Elton Brand is going to remain, or at least is expected to remain in his current position as the general manager. But from all indications that we've gotten, Morey was a target of Philadelphia ownership for a while, that they've been looking for a chance to go and get him. And when he turned down a chance to run the team 2 years ago, reportedly, before signing his last extension with the Houston Rockets. So for Philadelphia, they finally get the guy that they've wanted here, that they've been hoping that they would be able to get. And apparently they've been working around an exit agreement for a little while. And he's been in Houston for 13 years running that team?
It's been a very long time. I don't think he's been the GM by himself for 13 years, but he's been a part of this organization in some capacity for the better part of over a decade.
And when you mention making moves around the cap and being as tight to the cap as possible, the creativity that Daryl Morey has is always there. And whether or not I don't know how exactly to phrase this, but you look at taking a swing at maneuvering the team and finding a new way to construct a roster, that's where the creativity of Daryl Morey comes in. And if indeed Doc Rivers and him have a little bit of a preconceived idea of how they want this team to be run and how they see the organization being constructed and seeing the team being constructed, it's probably the best decision the Philadelphia 76ers have made in years, because they weren't making a whole lot of solid personnel decisions with Elton Brand. And if you can bring in somebody that's going to be able to make the decision between an Embiid and a Simmons, or at least try to find players and a system that can exemplify what those guys do really, really well. Daryl Morey reshaped that entire roster. I know I'm not telling you anything, Andrew. He reshaped that entire roster, it looks like, simply to see how James Harden can be brought to another level, and he was. The system with D'Antoni definitely helped, right? But the personnel on the floor was always catered towards Harden and his style of play. Right? Is that fair to say? Outside of maybe the Westbrook decision this year, because Westbrook kind of beats to his own drum.
Yeah, then I think the Westbrook decision is part of what drove him out of Houston, because his hand was forced on that a little bit. At least that's what we hear from the Houston media circles.
Okay.
We can touch on a little bit later. And because I think the fact of the matter is he doesn't leave a guy like James Harden behind unless he has some serious motivation to do so. And I think Rockets owner Tillman Fertitta was that motivation. But you're right. What Daryl Morey has done with the Rockets roster, consistently retooling it to shape what will be successful, or what he thinks can be successful around James Harden and the style of play in the NBA today, it's nothing short of incredible, especially considering they were basically never picking in the top part of the NBA draft.
Yep.
When he's been GM, the highest they've picked basically has always been 13th, 14th. And the fact that he's been able to do what he's done with that sort of draft capital at his disposal is nothing short of incredible. I mean, how many other teams have done a full rebuild? I think the Miami Heat might be the only one. How many other teams have done a full rebuild where they've never picked in the top 10 of the draft? I can't name another one outside of the Miami Heat.
No,
really
I
can't.
totally agree. And to be able to bring in top flight talent, you almost have to be in that spot. And that's where the mediocrity in the NBA is absolute purgatory. You get stuck with the 8th seed in the NBA, and that's what you're gunning for. You're gunning to be a team that just gets passed by in revenue, sales, ticket sales, and ultimately the fan base starts to just lose some interest. Because if you're not getting to a top 4 seed and you're having a legitimate chance to make it to the conference finals and the NBA finals, you're just going to be one of those teams that settles for the 8th place in the conference, get yourself a playoff share, and make a little bit of cash, and that's going to be where it's at. Whether or not you can move and maneuver the roster around to fit a new style of play, that's going to be a major question mark. The biggest job that Daryl Morey's going to have is figure out how they get some bench scoring there in Philadelphia, because their 1 through 5 is as good as anybody. That's why seemingly every single show that you watch or hear talking NBA would peg Philadelphia as a team that would win the East. They're probably Milwaukee's biggest competition in the East, because you look at Embiid, Simmons, Harris, Horford, but then that's kind of it. Where's the trickle down effect? Where's your 6th, 7th, and 8th guys? Because you saw what depth from an organization in Miami, what it can do. And you're exactly right. They're probably the easiest comparison, or the only other team that I can even remember remotely that was able to rebuild without going into the top 5, or at least into the top 10. But your Houston Rockets also made a decision today that I think is on the right track, but also without the decision maker, they might be heading for that 7 or 8 seed for the next few years. Let's get into that next, as Steven Silas is the new head coach of the Houston Rockets. Also, Trevor Lawrence. Dude, please tell me you're kidding. We'll tell you next. It's Sports Map All Night.
The Jake
Bill Schmidt alongside Andrew Carlson inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, guys. If you need replacement parts and tools for your repair, maintenance, or restoration project, O'Reilly Auto Parts has you covered. Trust the friendly, knowledgeable parts professionals at O'Reilly Auto Parts. They know what it takes to get the job done right the very first time. And in fact, professional technicians have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for years. Stop by and talk to one of the professional parts people today at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every single day. 1-800-224-2004 gets you into the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios and gets you to talk to my guy Andrew Carlson as he'll answer the phone call, and then you'll come and hang out with us and talk some NBA and where indeed the Houston Rockets go from this point. Now, we already knew that they were going to move on from Daryl Morey as the separation happened earlier on this offseason, and that was set in somewhat of a surprise. Andrew, was it a surprise down in Houston as much as it was across the country when Daryl Morey left the Rockets?
If you were tuned into the situation, which a lot of the close Rockets fans that I hang around are, you sort of saw the tea leaves. You could read them and you could see that the writing was on the wall for Daryl Morey and that he probably wasn't long for Houston. But I understand why the surprise was sort of nationwide and even to some extent within the city, because by and large, he's been a very, very successful GM outside of that elusive championship.
Well, that was the thing. The success that he's had, at least regular season and going up to the conference finals, most teams would kill for that opportunity.
You would think, but the problem is once you get to that level and you don't get over the hump, some angst develops, and because people in the city, and I'm sure people in the organization too, think, all right, well, we've been so close, maybe this is what needs to change. And I'm not saying by any means Daryl Morey was pushed out. If he still wanted to be in Houston, he would still be in Houston. He doesn't want to be here, and that's why he left.
Well, and that's a great point, because if he wanted to still be there, he would. So to me, it starts to lean towards there's always another opportunity. There's always another mountain to climb, right? In this business. And when you're in that front office realm, coaches as well, seems like there's always kind of a deadline. About 8 or 10 years, you kind of wear out your welcome. There's a term limit seemingly in that spot. Not many guys are there for 40 plus, 30, 40 plus years in those positions. You kind of have to move around. Although with the roster constructed as it was in Houston, a couple of people that I talked to up here and I thought it was dead wrong was, well, he doesn't want to try to trade. He doesn't want to get rid of that Westbrook contract. He doesn't think that he can get rid of the Westbrook contract. If anybody could make it work, I would believe Daryl Morey could. However, now he gets to go to Philadelphia and try to fix that conundrum they have with the 76ers and dig that organization out of the process realm that they've been in for the last decade. And that's a great challenge for a guy like that. But then when you're the Houston Rockets and you've been as close as you've been, and now Stephen Silas earlier today is named or is going to be hired a Dallas assistant, the son of Paul Silas, many people will remember, is now going to get signed to a 4-year contract to be the leader of the Houston Rockets. Difficult for me because I'm super excited for a dude to get his opportunity and his first chance to be a head coach. And he's worked under some of the better guys in the league, Rick Carlisle, Steve Clifford. I just don't know exactly what and how he gets sold to the players and how you sell other players on Silas coming in. I'll say this, though, Andrew, and I want to get your take on it as a Houston fan. It's got to be better than the New Orleans Pelicans going and getting Stan Van Gundy, for crying out loud.
Infinitely better.
Oh, my gosh. You hear the Pharrell promo of Jeff Van Gundy getting every job in the NBA. He's staying. There's no way he's leaving that NBA TV job. Frankly, I don't know why you want these guys that go into broadcasting all the time. Because guess what? There's a reason they're in broadcasting. They didn't grow up like Andrew and I hoping that they could get into broadcasting. They went into it because, well, we got let go, so we got to figure out a way to make some money. Is that too harsh for me to say? Not many guys.
No, I don't think it's harsh at all.
Not many guys that are in coaching dream of it one day. Oh man, I really want to get into broadcasting. Most of the time they get forced into broadcasting. And I think there's a reason why those guys stay in broadcasting. But for Silas in your camp, he's been in the league for 20 years. His dad was in the league, a Brown University graduate, worked under some of the top guys. What's the feeling around the inner circles that you have down there in Houston with all your fans onto the hire?
I think generally it's a pretty positive feeling. Out of the candidates that were being really talked about, which is Jeff Van Gundy, Silas, and then John Lucas III, Silas was clearly the most attractive candidate in terms of, okay, we don't really know what we're getting with him, and sometimes that's a bit of a positive. He's the architect of what was the NBA's best offense ever last year. This is including all those Golden State Warrior teams, Showtime Lakers, everybody. The Dallas Mavericks offense last season was the best offense in NBA history. Stephen Silas was the architect of that offense, and he's coming in to work with a similarly talented guy when you compare Luka Doncic to James Harden. So just right there, there's reasons to be positive. Now, depending on what they do with the assistants around him, I think is going to make a huge world of difference. If they get someone like Nate McMillan, who's being rumored right now, to sort of help with the defense, that would be absolutely huge, because every time James Harden has had a top 10 defense in his career for the season, he's made it to that conference finals that season. So if they can get the right assistants around him, I think it'll be a good fit. It's still to be determined how he's able to lead players, and with two personalities like Russell Westbrook and James Harden, that's a huge piece of what's going to happen. You know, you're going to have to get those guys to buy in. Otherwise, you're dead in the water. You're dead on arrival. But generally speaking, I think a lot of people are really positive about the hire.
That's the toughest part about it. When you have two A-type personalities, guys that are wanting to be the bell cow. They want the ball in their hands at any point in time. They want to be running it. They want to be the star attraction. And frankly, James Harden needs to be the main attraction. If Russell Westbrook still believes that he's a main attraction, that's going to be an issue. But the buy-in, I like that you mentioned that. That's going to be, I think, it's on the surface, it's more difficult for a guy that has not been there before. But from different people that I've run into and different people that I've talked to, like in those player circles, I feel like they will trust the process more with a guy who has not flamed out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think that if it's somebody who has failed at multiple stops, there's no reason to have them come into Houston. And
Exactly.
Be like, all right, well, this is going to work now. Well, why would it work? You're doing the exact same process that you've done every other place where you haven't been successful. So from that aspect, I absolutely agree. And honestly, some of the new young head coaches that have come up over the years have done some pretty cool things. Like Nick Nurse, I know a lot of people were really upset with that hire when it first went down, because you just fired the coach of the year in Dwayne Casey to bring in a guy who had never coached at the NBA level before. Well, look how that worked out for Toronto. They won a championship, and they're a damn good team with or without Kawhi Leonard. So I'm guessing the thought process in Houston, and I hope the thought process in Houston is that, hey, if it's new, it can't be worse than what's already out there.
Working with the type of guards that he has is obviously going to be a leg up. But when working with star players, I also think stressing partnership is a major factor in this. James Harden's going to have a legitimate feeling like he has a voice, and that's a big factor in this. Preview Thursday Night Football and Trevor Lawrence next.
Jay Farner here.
This is Sports Map All Night. Thanks for hanging out. Andrew Carlson's here. I'm Bill Schmid. Guys, this Saturday night, Fright Night becomes Fight Night. On Halloween night, October 31st, two of the best boxers in the world go head-to-head in what could be the fight of the year. Gervonta Tank Davis takes on Leo El Terremoto Santa Cruz. Live on pay-per-view Saturday, October 31st, guys. Two of the sport's most premier fighters in Tank Davis and Leo Santa Cruz meet up in one of the best fights that is a true 50-50 matchup because of where the two guys come from. Here's what's at stake. It's a real rare situation in boxing where two belts in two different weight classes are on the line in one fight. It'll be contested at 130 pounds, right? But they're also fighting for Santa Cruz's 130-pound title and Tank Davis's 135-pound title. Tank Davis won that 135-pound title in his previous fight, and Santa Cruz won his in his previous fight. Gervonta Davis is the protege of Floyd Money Mayweather. He's headlining a pay-per-view for the first time in the biggest fight of his career. For Leo Santa Cruz, he's also headlining a pay-per-view for the first time in his career, but he's a four-division world champion. Not a new kid on the block is Leo Santa Cruz. Tank Davis trying to make an absolute name for himself in his first time headlining a pay-per-view, guys. This is one of those moments for Davis versus Santa Cruz. It's a rare clash in boxing, which world titles in two different weight classes are on the line. Some other notable times that this has happened, back when Sugar Ray Leonard was boxing back in '88 for the lightweight and super middleweight title, and in 2014 when Tank Davis's mentor, Floyd Money Mayweather, went on and took home the super welterweight and welterweight championship as well. It's a stacked up undercard to say the absolute least. And Andrew Carlson's, Houston's own hard-hitting Ryan Carl is going to be featured as well in a monstrous battle on Fight Night coming up, guys, this Saturday night. It's October 31st. You purchase on Showtime pay-per-view and the Showtime app. You can get it right there on your smart TV or a connected device. Order online, Showtime.com, or you can do it the old-fashioned way and just contact your local cable or television provider. Easiest way to do it, though, go to Showtime.com. Showtime.com is the easiest way to make sure that you are not missing two titles in a winner-take-all match between Tank Davis against Leo Santa Cruz. It's going to be absolutely epic, live on pay-per-view this Saturday night. There's no reason to go trick-or-treating, no reason to dress up. Dress down, hang out in some shorts, maybe a hoodie, order the pay-per-view, and enjoy Fight Night coming up this Saturday night, October 31st, live on Showtime pay-per-view, Davis versus Santa Cruz. This is Sports Map All Night, 1-800-224-2004 if you want to join us. Tomorrow is Thursday night. That means Thursday Night Football is back. Andrew, I don't know how we've made it through a whole night now without live sports. I think I completely forgot how we did this for an entire 4.5 month span where there was no real games on television. Maybe I'm just weird and lame that I can't do another rerun of How I Met Your Mother, man. We need something on. That's why this fight this weekend has got me so excited. It's one of the other reasons why the UFC pay-per-view this past weekend, I think, had so much luster, as well as that was a monstrous fight. This one is going to match it as well. But college football on Saturday, going to be good. Week 8 in the NFL, you already look at some of the matchups we get. Pittsburgh against Baltimore. I'm already excited to watch my Packers drill the Minnesota Vikings and sweep those guys again. Watch head coach Matt LaFleur go to 9-0 in the NFC North. And don't forget, we finally get to see Tua. This almost flew completely under the radar that we're finally getting to see Tua coming up this weekend against the LA Rams in a team that's coming across the coast on a short week. Not saying that the Rams are any slouch. You guys know how I feel about the Rams. I think they're a really, really strong team, and they get doubted quite a bit across the country. But that is definitely one where the Rams might want to be on upset alert, especially if Tua can come out slinging the rock like we know we can. But tomorrow night, it's Matt Ryan against Teddy Bridgewater. And the team that is 1-6 is not the Carolina Panthers. If you would have told me in July when we were looking at the schedule, dreaming of what the NFL season would look like, you told me going into this week 8 Thursday night matchup, one of the teams was going to be 1-6 and the other would be 3-4, absolutely would have been reversed. Matt Rule, though, is the head coach of the Carolina Panthers in his first year. He's already coached 7 games so far, and he still hasn't had Christian McCaffrey since what, week number 3? Matt Rules talks about if we'll see Christian McCaffrey coming up tomorrow night, and what could we expect when Christian McCaffrey finally gets back on the football field.
The reality is, once the season starts, you're never going to be 100%. Guys have to battle through things, but at the same time, we don't want to bring anybody back too soon. That being said, I think it differs by position. I think, an O lineman, a D lineman can deal with some different injuries. I think when you're talking about a running back, who obviously makes their living running, cutting, producing power, you have to make sure that they have, that they have all those skill sets available to them. So that's been our approach with him, but also our approach with Reggie. As Reggie comes back from the same injury, just making sure that when they go out there, they have all their skills that they need to go out and play at a really high level. In terms of this week, I think from any injury, every day is crucial. The more time you have, the more important it is. The better chance you have of playing. That being said, we're playing on Thursday night, and for our whole team, whoever can go is going to go, and whoever can't, we'll trust their backups.
Can I do some breakdown of what we just heard there from Matt Rule? No, Christian McCaffrey is not going to play tomorrow night. Is that what you gathered out of that as well, Andrew? Out of all of that, hey man, what are you waiting for Christian McCaffrey to come back with that high ankle sprain that he believed 4 to 6 weeks was a challenge? So can we see him on Thursday night? Yeah, we got to make sure that the guys are all ready to go and that everything is set and there's no issues going and they're not going to be hampered at all for their performance. So if you're a fantasy owner of Christian McCaffrey, there's a reason why that IR designation is still sitting right next to his name. However, that definitely feels promising going into the Panthers next week after they get past the Atlanta Falcons. And their schedule gets tough for a couple of weeks. They go to Kansas City, then they get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and some other winnable games, though. Lions, Vikings, Broncos. That could be 3 straight W's after, I think, Carolina rolls coming up tomorrow night against the Atlanta Falcons. But for Julio Jones, guy that's had as much success as just about anybody in the league, he's just excited to finally get into a rivalry game again against Carolina.
The learning curve is cut down immensely due to the fact that, you know these guys, they know these guys, division opponent. They know us, we know them. Regardless of the scheme, things like that, even we know the personnel, we know guys over there, things like that. So, it's gonna be fun. It's always fun to play in the division. It's always fun to have that rival and go at it.
Carolina dropping 2.5 tomorrow night at home in Charlotte. Expect rain in the forecast for tomorrow's game. On Thursday Night Football, the Falcons against the Carolina Panthers. I'm excited to at least have something going on, as well as I'm just excited, Andrew. I don't know about you. I'm just excited that it's not the NFC East.
Look, NFC East, AFC South, as long as we're not talking any of those teams, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. As long as we can get away from that, we're all going to be in a better place. So, Trevor Lawrence, I think, is a really, really nice kid. Everything that I've been able to consume of Trevor Lawrence at Clemson bodes tremendously well for his future. There's many people that believe he might be the best quarterback prospect coming out since Peyton Manning. The Andrew Luck folks as well. Going to get many comparisons to him. Some people have pointed the John Elway route because he can do stuff with his legs, right? He's 31-1 so far as a starting quarterback at Clemson. They're 6-0 at the moment. Top-ranked team in the country. And then Trevor Lawrence earlier this week was asked about possibly staying for a senior season. Can you just take a listen to this and please tell me that he is just pandering to the audience? Trevor Lawrence absolutely had to be joking when he says that, hey, you know, I don't know, maybe we could possibly stick around. He said, no matter where I go, whether it's across the country, whether it's close to home, whether I stay another year, we'll work it out. Trevor, let's wrap. You're about to get your bachelor's degree in November. You're going to have a nice marketing degree that, frankly, my man, you're never going to have to use. I think there's a conversation that all parents have with their kids. And I have no kids, luckily, that I know of. At some point, I feel like all parents have the conversation with their youngsters and say, son, it's time to get a job. I know I've gotten that talk. It's time that you start paying some bills. Trevor, it's time you go and get a job, kid. Time you go and get a job that pays. Number 1 overall pick. It's going to be the most hyped draft pick in the last 6, 7, 8 years, if not longer. Whether or not you love Clemson, and I'm all for team camaraderie, love college football because of what it does for a lot of young men, and especially Dabo Swinney. I know he might not be everybody's favorite person. I think he's an incredible football coach, and he's done so much for so many young guys that, you know, are life-changing. We see the dudes that go and play on Sundays. We don't really account for the dudes that Saturdays are the biggest games they'll ever play in. Trevor Lawrence has a lot of big games to play in. It's about time he starts getting paid for them. You go off. You're in line to win a 6th consecutive ACC title for your school. A trip to the college football playoff is all but certain. You're going to get a degree, so you can't use that as an excuse. Your mom won't be able to hold that over you that you never got a college education. Trevor, it's time to start going making some money. I will say this, though, and I've hoped this for a while. Not because I hold anything against anybody in the New York Jets organization or anybody in their fan base. I just love chaos. It's one thing that I am absolutely drawn to. I am really hoping he pulls an Eli Manning or an Elway. Just demand a trade. Say you will not go and play for the New York Jets, because that would be, I'd pay to see how that plays out in the media. Could you imagine the folks on all 3 networks now that cover the NFL draft? The lead up, the build up, and finally those 10 minutes, those 10 agonizing minutes on the clock, because you know they'll use all 10. Man, what do we do? Do we take him? Do we trade him? Who actually wants? Everybody wants him, but what are we going to get for value for him? Those conversations would just be too good to miss. And then, you know, who knows? Maybe the New York Jets just go all Jets on us and say, you know what? Yeah, we're going to take you even though you don't want to play here, and we're going to have you learn and be mentored by Sam Darnold. I mean, that would be the most Jets decision that they could possibly make, right? Find a way to take both and have 2 quarterbacks under the age of 26 on your roster. I just hope the guy goes off into the NFL, makes a great amount of money. He's going to have an incredible career. But Trevor, it's time to start making some dollars for that right arm that you have, because it is just too good to be used for free anymore. Wrap things up next on a Wednesday without live sports. Ugh. At least you had Sports Map all night. We're back after this.
My bad, Bill. I totally thought you were just linking the story. I didn't realize there was audio on that.